Business ownership has never been hotter, but how do you do it? That's where I come in. Allow me to guide you on your journey. Welcome to Ion Franchise. This episode sponsored by SEO Samba. Empower your franchise with predictable results and AI-driven marketing. Up next.
Now it's something that people do for their health and for fitness and for community.
I love it. That's a great tip you just gave right there. Quick decision making equals success most of the time.
You might be the first to bring the concept into the market.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another fabulous episode of Ion Franchising, and I'm your host, Lance Graulich. Fitness is hot. Fitness is always hot, and we all know we should be paying attention to our health now more than ever. And with the end of the year, right where we are, everybody's thinking, do I have to get in shape? Should I be in shape? But more importantly, let's talk to Miss Lindsay, who is the president of YogaSix. I think yoga's been around like for hundreds of years, but she might tell us about the truth of that. But I think it's like some ancient ritualistic fitness program. I don't know. Lindsay Junk, president of YogaSix, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lance. I'm so happy to be here. And yes, you're right. Yoga is an ancient practice. It's been around for thousands of years.
Thousands of years.
Thousands of years.
I love it. So when it was created, and this isn't something we've talked about, but when it was created, you know, what was it about? Was it about the spiritual world and your body and connecting the two?
Oh, yes. I mean, it originated in India and really is more of a form of just their natural way of life. And it became popular in America probably about 60 to 80 years ago. And when it first came here, it was mostly kind of like odd people doing it, kind of hippie types, but
earthy tree hugger types.
Yes, and that is not me, nor is it really any of our franchisees or our members. But that's how it originated, right? You kind of think of like hippie people doing yoga and singing Kumbaya and doing peace signs.
Yeah.
It's evolved from there, and now it's something that people do for their health and for fitness and for community.
And I love that it's pretty low impact, so virtually anybody of any age can do this.
Right, and that's actually, our tagline is yoga for everyone. So it really is for everyone. I mean, I talk about this all the time in our discovery days and when I'm talking to franchisees. I tell them about the time that I brought my mom, who at the time was like in her late 70s, early 80s, not the fittest person on the planet, and then my twin daughters, who at the time were 11, and we all went to take a class at YogaSix. And I was in my 40s then, pretty fit, probably the fittest of all of us, and I have these young twins that are falling all over the mat trying to like get their balance, and then my mom, and we're all in the same class, and we all had a great workout. I got a good workout. I was sweating. The kids had fun. My mom got some good mind clearing breathing. So we are really a brand for everybody, which is, I don't know, my CMO doesn't love that because it's hard to market everyone.
Yeah.
But we've certainly seen yoga evolve over the last.
I think for fitness, you're in enough of a niche, but the fact that anybody can participate is amazing. So talk about why a fitness or why a yoga franchise? Why would people listening, a lot of entrepreneurs and prospective and future entrepreneurs are listening to the show, and they're trying to understand, well, Lance, what is the best franchise for me? So why a yoga franchise?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. I mean, I'll say the one thing that comes to mind for me is that everybody's our customer. So it's not like we're doing, and Barry's boot camp is not a franchise, but not everybody can go to Barry's, right? Barry's is a very high impact, high cardio. You have to be pretty fit to go do that workout. Not everybody can go do a boxing class.
Right.
But everybody can take a yoga class, and really everybody should be. It's something that we all should be doing. And right now, since COVID, really, there's been a pretty big shift in the way that people think about their health, right?
Yes.
Before, when before I was with YogaSix before COVID, but the driving force for people coming into our studios before 2020 was still how you look,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes people would come in with injuries and they wanted to recover and that sort of thing, but the majority of people wanted to look better, and then the second was feel better. Now people are coming in saying, I want to feel better and I want to live longer and I want to live better. And that the longevity movement is what is very popular now. And people are looking at, how do I live a better life? How do I live longer? How do I maximize my experiences on this earth? And yoga is a great way to do that.
Yeah.
And so, number one, everybody is our customer. Number two, we serve as a way to help people live better, and it's also a good workout. And then the number four piece is it's a great form of community. And so coming out of COVID, people are really looking for ways to connect with other people and be a part of their community. And so church used to be that for a lot of people. Work used to be that for a lot of people, but now you've got people working from home, so they're not getting that community at work.
Yes.
Church, unfortunately, attendance is not what it used to be. And so people are going to gyms, yoga studios, places like that for their community. And we're finding in our franchise system that's a big part of why our members stay and why we have such, I'll use a word you used earlier, raving fans as our members, is because they just love being there. They like being part of the community. They like being in a place where they belong. And then they feel really good when they take a class.
Yeah, I love that. So let's get to, who are the most successful franchise owners that you have today? And let me follow that up with, if you're going to think of the top 5 most successful YogaSix franchisees today, what were their backgrounds?
Yeah, that's a good question. They're not all the same. We just came from our annual convention where we actually gave out awards. And so I can, without naming names, I'll describe them to you. So our number one franchisee, it's a husband and wife couple. Both of them have backgrounds in different, one of them has a background in marketing, the other one I think was in like the sports industry. Neither one of them are yoga teachers or have a background in business or franchising. But what they do have in common with the other people that won awards are that they're very passionate about their business. And it doesn't have to be yoga really, but what they're doing. They happen to love the business of yoga. One of them is a yoga teacher, but she became a yoga teacher after she bought the franchise.
Right.
So these are people that are just really excited to own their own. The reason they have 3 kids, they want to work together. They don't want to work in corporate America. They want to control their schedules. And when I'm doing calls with them, they're usually at home at their kitchen table or driving their kids somewhere. But they've been extremely successful this year, and they're just really excited about owning their own business. And I will say, they're great at following the plan.
Yes.
They're not trying to tell me how to create my next yoga class or the best way to sell a membership. They're very good at saying, okay, like, what does YogaSix say we should do? Okay, we'll do that.
Yeah.
And then they do it very, very, very well.
Yeah, follow the system, don't reinvent the system.
Yes. So, and then the other, I think about the guy that came in second place, very different, private equity guy. He was always getting money by, like helping other people make money. Still does that on the side, but wanted to have something where it's his own. And so all his hard work and effort is going into making money for himself and his family. Yeah. And, since he started the system, he had the number 1 studio last year. He's now I think the number 3 or 4 studio, but he's got 3 other studios that he opened over the course of the year and is building this little empire.
I love that.
And he does that on the side while he continues to work in private equity.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there for the listeners in what you just said. Number one, a private equity guy invests in YogaSix, tells you there's money to be made, otherwise he would have not gotten involved. Secondly, he kept his day job, which, as you know, Lindsay, the number one thing that people are looking at today are multiple streams of income. And if you have a great income from a day job, even if you don't even like it, you don't want to necessarily leave yet, the timing might not be right, continue to soak up some corporate salary and do something on the side. So there's a lot of positive going on with that. So I'd imagine in your process, as people come through this process and
Right.
they're doing validation and they're talking to existing franchisees, how do you do that, by the way? Because I would love to be able to talk to franchisees, and I have in the past, but
Hmm.
prospective franchise owners, how do you do that?
Well, I mean, everybody's in the FDD, right? So if you're somebody that's looking to buy a YogaSix franchisee, you can look in our FDD and call anybody. And that's really
Great,
how it's been going for us. I mean, and the majority of our validation has been positive.
great.
And what I think is interesting, I mean, being a part of the Exponential family, we get to kind of compare and contrast our franchisees. And we actually have a group of franchisees that like each other and are excited about each other's success. And I think they understand that the success of their neighbor or the success of somebody across the country is going to help them.
Yeah,
And so our validation has been it's been strong
awesome.
because they realize that, you know what, having 7 or 10 or 25 yoga studios in Virginia is going to help me, not hurt me.
Yeah,
Um, and so, and we really can't control who's validating, but I'd say 9 out of 10 times it's been a very positive interaction.
in every brand, there's always going to be people that aren't doing as well as they think, or, you
Well,
know,
and people in general, right?
yes,
Not everybody's a positive person, and
yeah,
you learn that in being in franchising and meeting so many people.
yeah,
You could have the most successful franchisee and think, oh my gosh, they're going to be the best validators, but all they do is talk about how hard it's been and whatever's negative because
yeah,
that's their style. So
exactly.
um, on the flip side, you might have a franchisee who's struggling, but they have like the best attitude and they validate really well.
Yeah. Well, they also see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So, do most of your franchisees do multiple units?
Um, when we started out, we did sell a lot of 3 packs and 5 and 10 packs, and many of them um, developed those. As we get bigger, we're more likely to do 1 and 2, just because of the way that the territory lays out.
Hmm.
But ideally, having multiple locations is going to be the best way to grow with YogaSix because there is significant economies of scale,
Yeah.
especially with teachers, like going in between different locations, and even some of the management team can oversee if the franchisee wants multiple locations. And so we have, depending on where in the country people are looking, we have opportunity to do multiple locations. Some parts of the country are a little bit more built out where it's going to be one.
Yeah. You mentioned teachers, yoga instructors, yoga teachers.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that because, as you know, that is something it seems that everybody's concerned about. If I bought a business, if I bought a franchise, where am I going to find people? I can't imagine it's difficult to find people passionate about yoga
It,
that
you know,
are yoga
yeah.
instructors and teachers.
Well, if you're here and like I'm in the LA Orange County area, I can throw a rock and hit a yoga teacher. There's a lot of them.
Now, why would you do that? I'm just
Exactly.
kidding.
Why would I do that? But there's a governing body that certifies yoga teachers, and it's called Yoga Alliance. And there is a list. If you're certified, it's to teach yoga, you would be on this Yoga Alliance list. And you literally, if you're somebody considering buying a franchise, and let's say you're in Alaska, you could look up on the Yoga Alliance and see how many people are certified to teach the 200-hour, like teach yoga. And then from there, we do a 4-day program to certify them to teach the YogaSix style. But becoming a yoga teacher is actually it's involved and
Yeah.
it's fun, not easy. But there's a lot of people who have done that. There's thousands and thousands of people across the country that have taken the proper requirements to teach at a YogaSix.
Yeah.
So
No.
other different than some of our other competitors, yoga teachers are probably the easiest fitness modality type people to find. And the other thing to say is that we actually run our own teacher training. So if somebody, let's say they own one location and they want to be able to open another and they're worried about having teachers, they can run a teacher training, which is very profitable. And out of that teacher training can come their teachers.
Awesome.
So they're homegrown.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah.
Talk about the process. So, when somebody gets into your process, I'm a
Yep.
franchise broker, I bring somebody to you. What is that process like, and how long is the time frame from first phone call with someone on your team to becoming a franchisee, generally speaking?
That it can vary. I've had people come in and really quickly turn around and become franchisees, like within a couple weeks. But generally, we do like for them to really get a good understanding of what the brand is, which would mean having, going through an educational process where they learn about the brand with someone from our development team, and then sitting in on some of our corporate staff calls. So I have a call that I do every couple weeks where I love it when some of our prospects come in and they listen to my call. We have a lot of dialogue so they can kind of get to know me. We also do the same thing with my director of education. So talk about the product and some of those questions about like how hard it is.
Director of Yoga Education. I love
Yes, big job.
it. Love it.
So they can talk to her about just, those questions, because you're right, that is a concern, and usually it's one of the least of our worries, but when people come in to the system, that's the number one question we're getting is, oh, it must be so hard to find yoga teachers. And we said, no, it's usually the opposite. Like you have more
Yeah.
teachers than you need. And then we have the same thing with our VP of sales, because a big part of our system is around selling memberships to yoga, right?
Yeah.
So they go through that, and then if they still like us and we like them, we usually invite them to come to a confirmation day here in Irvine, California.
In
And that's
person, right? And they
in
have to,
person.
they're forced to take a yoga class.
Yeah, we force them. And you know what's cool about it is
What?
we've had so many people come in that people have never taken a class, and they'll come in and their first yoga class is with us, and
That's
they usually
awesome.
love it. Like I can think through, and we've got over 400 franchisees now. One guy didn't like the class. So
It had to be, I would have guessed it was a guy.
yeah, and I think he actually eventually started liking the class. I think he was just embarrassed that he
Yeah.
was having a hard time. Because yoga is, even the fittest, strongest people, sometimes it can be a challenge, right?
Yeah.
And so this person didn't have any experience not being good at something.
Probably
But
said something about his health or lack of fitness.
yeah, I think it was just that he felt, and then we're also a heated yoga brand, so sometimes like being in a hot room can be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But we invite all of our prospects to come and take a class with us, which we love, and we get to know them in that way. And then we take them to dinner, which is our favorite part. And then the next day they go through a whole classroom section on just what we do to support them as franchisees. So they get to meet everyone on the team, all the different executives. And then at the end of that, our goal is for them to know if they like us or not, and for us to know if we think they're a good fit.
Yeah.
It's important for us that it's a good fit for us, especially with the good validation that we've been having and knowing that our franchisees really support each other. I want to make sure that continues, so I take that part of my job very seriously. And so, anyways, if it's a go, then usually people are getting started right away. So it can be anywhere from 2 weeks to 3 months. A lot of times it depends on the people going through the process and how quickly they go through it. But I will say this: the ones that go through the fastest usually are the most successful, and the reason for that is they make decisions.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. Like if you can make a decision and you know what you want, even if it's the wrong thing, you're always moving forward, and that is in my eyes, a good precursor to success.
I love it. That's a great tip you just gave right there. Quick decision making equals
Yeah.
success most of the time.
Okay.
So let's talk about marketing. It's a big question, comment that comes up often. Because when people buy into a franchise, they want to make sure they're getting value in their marketing dollars. And I happen
Yeah.
to know that you have a great pre-sales process. So your goal is to help people ramp up quickly, even before they're open for business. So describe that process.
Yeah, that's our secret sauce right there. Is that
So wait,
so
we
the
shouldn't tell them?
No, they need to know that for
Okay.
sure. It's not a secret. But I will say like that really, if someone were to say, what's the most important thing in the success of a YogaSix, I will say how you do in pre-sale. And so we have our franchisees begin selling memberships to their studios before they sign their lease, usually around the time they sign their LOI. And that gives them 3 months to ramp their membership base up. And if things go well, they typically are going to open with enough revenue coming in to cover most of their expenses, or all of them.
So they can
So
get in the $1 million club within the first year.
yes, they can. And so I was telling you, we had our convention and we were giving out awards. We have a dozen people or so in that club, but a handful of them are in year one, which is awesome.
That's amazing.
To see studios that are able to do that quickly. Um, and it's a really great way to, to quickly scale, and maybe potentially, like I was talking about the private equity guy who's, he was in the $1 million club year one, and now he's got a couple more studios open.
That's amazing. Yeah, there's no doubt in the fitness business, I love your secret sauce to be able to really open the doors and actually be cash flow positive is pretty amazing. When
Yeah,
most people generally in any business are struggling, and the biggest question people always ask me is, well, Lance, when am I going to break even? When am I going
yeah,
to start making money? How much money am I going to make the first year? And I tell people, unfortunately, a lot of this depends on you, but during validation, these are the things that
right.
you can ask franchisees.
Right. And really for us, it resulted in being a positive and helping with cash flow. But the reason that we do it is so that we have a community already there, right?
Oh,
Can you
yeah,
imagine walking into a studio and it's like you and the teacher in the class? It's not going to be a great experience.
100%.
And so the reason that we sell the memberships up front is we want to have full classes. We want to have a vibrant, exciting community ready to go. And so
Yes.
we start focusing on that even before we open. Like a lot of our franchisees will have mixers and things before they open their studio to show that they've got, to get the members and the community excited.
Yeah.
And it results in,
Yeah.
in revenue, but it's kind of needed in order to just launch successfully. So
I love that.
most communities are really excited about the prospect of having a brand new yoga studio open. I know there one just opened in my hometown. I see a chiropractor every few weeks for all my different injuries, and the studio was open right down the street, and everyone in the office knew it was coming. They were
Yeah.
so excited. So
That's awesome. I always tell people, because I've opened so many restaurants over the years, mostly franchises, that the test of good marketing or good local marketing is that everybody within a 1 mile radius knows you exist and where you are and what you do. And especially like you described, when you go to the local businesses, you have to
yeah,
be the ambassador for yourself.
yeah, and it's a way to really, like, if you live in that community, it's a way to give back. Like that studio is actually sponsoring one of the teams at my daughter's school, and all the girls are going to join over the holidays and do some yoga together, and so they're now their customers, but the studio sponsored the team
Yeah,
during the season, and it was just, I don't know, it was a really cool thing
that's
for
awesome.
those owners and for the kids, and I think that studio is now going to continue to just do very well.
Yeah, no, that's great. You mentioned community several times,
Hmm.
and we talked about the community, like the customer base feels like it's an amazing community to be part of the YogaSix community from a customer or client perspective. But talk a little bit about all that collaboration. You mentioned Virginia earlier, or any
Right.
town in America where there's a critical mass of franchisees. Maybe there's 4 franchisees in a town, or just the overall collaboration where top franchisees get together to discuss the best practices and how to continue to evolve and improve the brand. A lot of people forget about that. They forget about that collaboration between great franchisees.
Yeah, that's well. We just coming off last week was our annual convention, and we kind of kick off that part of the collaboration there and try to foster as much just connection as we can. And we actually every quarter we do a regional training where our corporate team will go and pull local franchisees in, so we give them the opportunity to collaborate then. We also do, just before I came off of our system-wide call. So every month we get the whole system on and talk about how the studios have done. But we'll pull 1 or 2 successful studio owners and have them talk on those calls,
That's great.
which I think is very valuable.
Yeah.
And then we have a franchise advisory council that changes every year, and they collaborate and talk about best practices. We also have an innovation council, which works on innovating our product, which I know sounds kind of funny when you talk about an ancient practice,
Yeah.
and that yoga doesn't change, but the way that we present it changes, and different class styles. We're doing most recently the newest class that we launch is a mobility class, and like I talked about, longevity, mobility is part of longevity, and so that's a class that we'll be launching in the new year, and that came out of our innovation council, and that's made up of franchise owners along with teachers. And then we also have our marketing fund committee, which helps my CMO with how to spend marketing dollars, but also overall helps with the marketing calendar, and they collaborate with their local regions. So,
Yeah.
and then I know our owners have their own Facebook page they're going back and forth on all the time.
Yeah.
And we try our best to give them as many opportunities. This year, actually, we're going to have our first ever teachers retreat, where the teachers will come out here and have a couple days where they're going to get to learn from each other, and we'll do the same thing with our general managers.
So each franchisee could send their yoga instructors or teachers?
Yeah, they can.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes the whole system better. Let's talk a little bit about you. So
Okay.
7 years or so as president
Yeah.
of YogaSix.
Yeah. Yeah, I was
Amazing.
lucky enough to start when Exponential bought YogaSix from the original founders. I came on board, and so at the time, I think we had 13 studios that we had franchised back to the original owner. And then I was lucky enough to be able to start really at ground zero. It's been a great ride.
Yeah.
I took the job because I wanted the opportunity to start something from the ground up. But most of the time when you get involved in a company, you're coming in halfway through, and you have to keep the people that are already there. And so I was lucky enough to be able to hire the whole team.
Yeah.
Most of the team is still here, by the way, which I'm excited about.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And it's been, I've been in the fitness industry the majority of my life. I was a college athlete, and then ended up working in the health, like in a gym as a personal trainer, which was not my parents' favorite decision that I made, but it ended up parlaying itself into, getting into the executive team.
Yeah.
And working in management. But
It worked just fine, Mom and Dad, in
Yeah.
case you're watching.
yeah, let's make sure they understand that they weren't happy with me when I called them and said, "Hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a general manager of a gym."
Yeah.
But it ended up working out really well. But I was in yoga before this. I worked for another company, and it was a corporately owned company. And we would get calls all the time from people saying, "Are you guys franchising? I want to open in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I want to open in somewhere in Virginia. I want to open, it's just like kind of random places, right?"
Yeah.
And we didn't franchise. And so when I got the opportunity to come on board with Expo and run a yoga franchise company, I knew it would do well, because
Yeah.
there's people want yoga everywhere,
Absolutely.
not just in the super sexy cities, right? Like you want to be able to do yoga in Bismarck, Montana, or anywhere.
Exactly. Yeah, and a lot of people, it's interesting because I have clients that, let's say, are in Des Moines, Iowa, and they say things like, "Well, will this work here?" And it could be
Yeah.
anything. It could be an air conditioning brand. It could be yoga. It could be, and the answer is, those demographics, those people exist everywhere. With social media today, everybody gets to see what everybody's doing, right? It's fair
Yeah.
to say those customers are all over the country.
And I will say this, the number one studio that I was telling you about, it's not in California or New York, it's in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
I love it.
Our number 2 studio is in Arlington, Virginia. Our number 3 studio is in Maryland. So,
Yes.
Baltimore, Maryland. So it sometimes is those like sub markets that you might be the first to bring the concept into the market.
Yep.
Which is very exciting.
Yeah, it's just proof that it can work almost anywhere. So, Lindsay, what would you say to someone that says, Lindsay, I think YogaSix is fantastic, but I could start my own yoga studio and I don't need to pay you a franchise fee or royalties?
I would hope that they would have a background in yoga then, but if somebody wants to do that, that's probably not our franchisee, really. If they think that way, I would, honest truth, probably say, great, good luck. I wish you the best. I think there's room for everybody. But the positive to owning a YogaSix is we now have over 200 locations. So the branding alone, just, oh, there's a YogaSix here, there's a YogaSix here. Like, we now get people that will come in and say, I was a member here, I want to join here.
Right.
So number one, you have the power of the brand that is in play and working. And then the support, of course. You know, I just talked about the new class that we're launching. That's taking hours and hours of time here at the corporate office testing and making sure that it's the right class. We spent a lot of money on market research to make sure that we made the right choice with the class that we were adding. And then all of the marketing support, you know, our campaign in the month of January is Yoga is Now, and the word yoga is actually tied into being in the now and in the moment.
Yeah.
And so that campaign we're very excited about it. I think it'd be really hard to create something like that if it was just, you know, your mom and pop yoga studio.
Yeah.
All of the assets, the website, and then the sales support. You know, I'm listening right now. I'm in my office, but outside I can hear my sales team running a workshop. And they do that once a week. So they can bring on, they have all of the different general managers and wellness advisors come on and get trained. So the owner doesn't have to worry about any of that. So to me, it just it's definitely worth that, what the percentage that you're going to pay in revenue to get that support. But if somebody wants to make up their own style of yoga and wants to be really creative, then they absolutely should do it on their own.
Yeah. Everybody, I think, tends to underestimate what it takes to build their own brand from scratch. And that's why I always tell everybody, hey, look, if it's your first business, you better pick a franchise because you have a much better chance of being successful. Lindsay.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much easier to do it. And unless you're one of those very few, very creative, you know, outside the box thinkers, it's going to be hard to be successful.
Yeah.
And the majority of like you asked me earlier, like what are the most successful franchisees? They're really the ones that follow the system. And that's the majority of people. Most of us don't want to create our own thing.
No.
So, yeah, it is so much easier. And really, we just tell you what to do, you have to do it. That's the part that's hard, is the execution piece. People think that's easy, and it is not.
So, Lindsay, you've been awesome. Final thoughts, final words of wisdom for the listeners.
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm just going to end with, we're coming into the new year. I think now is the time to focus on yourself. That might mean, getting in and doing some yoga and focusing on yourself that way, or maybe it means thinking about changing a career, working for yourself, having a little bit more flexibility, being more in control of your destiny. That's a great time to get started.
Awesome. Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for being here. YogaSix brand president. You're awesome. Thanks for being here and have a great day.
Thanks for having me.
If you're ready to talk about franchise opportunities, hit the link below to schedule a call. My services are free. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.